I want you to dance with me, Tricia and Marc.
Welcome to Read My Lips Radio, a lively hour of unscripted conversations with savvy creatives. Producer and host, akaRadioRed, asks novelists, artists, photographers, designers, comedians, actors, musicians, composers, screenwriters, directors, and technology innovators about their creative passion, inspirational muses, and how they create. Ooh, how those lips can talk. Now, here's akaRadioRed.
Thank you very much to the wonderful voice who introduces me. Let's tone this music down and we will stop the player, and here we are. It is Monday. Where else would akaRadioRed be? I'm in the house and I'm very happy to be here. I have two very special guests today. We thought we'd have three, but we have two, and they're going to be absolutely wonderful. This is my show about creativity. And those of you watching, we don't have any live viewers now, but you will. Those of you watching may notice that I've changed the title of the show in my background. I'm emphasizing cool conversations with creatives rather than read my lips. I decided to go through a little bit of quiet rebranding because the theme is really creativity. That's what we talk about. I talk to interesting people from the old phrase, all walks of life. I talk to them every Monday, usually a panel of 3 or 4, about what they create, how they create their life, how they create a business, how they create, how they look, how they talk, what they do, how they answer the phone. Does anybody answer the phone anymore? I'm not so sure, Marc and Tricia, but we'll talk about that. Before we get started and I introduce my two lovely guests, I want you both to please put up your hand in the shape of the letter L. We're going to do a shout out. There we go. And on the count of 3, I want you to join me in saying hello, LLL, just like that. 1, 2, 3. Hello,
L.
L, L, L.
Oh.
Jordan put them down a tie for second place. We almost got it precisely on the dot. They were close. So second place, Marc and Tricia, that's fine. LLL is lovely, lanky Laura Legs, our most loyal listener. She hasn't been well the past couple weeks. She's got that flu that just won't go away. But when she listens, she always appreciates the shout out. I met her at a dance class years and years ago. I was taking instruction, not giving it for a change. And she will send me a little note at 6:01 p.m. and she will tell me what Tricia said and what Marc said, just a little tiny book review. And she follows a line of people, mostly relatives of mine, who've listened over the years and like to send me a little summary of what they heard on the show. And she always loves the show. And she calls me beautiful, gorgeous lady of red. Marc, I want you to know that's what she calls me. Tricia gets that. Okay, so I will tell you that we are now, oh my goodness, it's March 3rd. I was wondering, January went fast. February went fast. We're now in the first week of March, and next Sunday here in the U.S., in most of the U.S., is daylight savings time. So you got to get ready to change your clocks. Most of them will change automatically, I know, but the car might not, and the stove and the microwave. So I put a little note on LinkedIn to be careful to remember, yes, to do that. Okay, this is the 62nd day of 2025 in the Gregorian calendar. We gave up on the Julian calendar because Marc, he skipped about 14 days in October, so if you had a birthday on the 3rd, and the 14th, you wouldn't have had it because there were just no days in there. So Gregorian came along and said, hey, I'm more creative than Julian. I'm going to add a leap year every 4th year, and we're going to add 1 day, and that'll catch us up to the moon. And we are. And now everybody in October, including me, gets a birthday. 303 days are left. What? And it's the 9th Monday. What can I tell you? So let me do my introduction for my esteemed guests. And here we go. When I call your name, please, just wave so we know who you are. So welcome to Read My Lips, where akaRadioRed, me, shines bright, bringing cool conversations with creatives for your delight in my Scarlett Mike's live streaming glow. Am I glowing, Marc? I hope it's okay. She opens the door. She opens the door, boom, for creative sparks to ignite and inspiration to soar. Today's show, The Youthfulness of Creativity, will enlighten your day with 2 vibrant creatives whose imaginations play, passion and purpose helped their paths unfold as they discovered creativity's soul that makes life bold. Here we go. Marc Prensky, wave hello, coined the term digital natives first, guiding youth through changes as they immersed. With his books and projects bold and grand, he creatively empowers kids to take a stand. From Harvard and Yale to a global stage, Marc sparks young minds in the digital age. Marc, what'd you think?
I thought that was great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we have Tricia Copeland with us. Wave hello. She weaves tales both dark and bright, from science to fiction, her words alight. With twists and turns, her stories surprise in the Rockies, where her inspiration lies. From research labs to worlds unknown, Tricia crafts new realms, all her own. Tricia, I hope you like that.
I did. Thank
I
you.
got a nod. So gather round and lend us your eye and your ear as we dive into creativity with vision clear at AKA Radio Red's roundtable set today. We hope to inspire you to live large, love life, and play. I hope you both enjoyed that. What'd you think, Tricia?
That was a lot of fun.
I'm glad. Mark, what'd you think?
Okay, I'll give you 11 out of 10.
Oh dear, I think I'll take it. Thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate that. Full transparency, I have a virtual assistant. I call her Sylvia Speed. You all might call her just ChatGPT. And she works with me, and I send her all my guest bios, and she crunches them in about 6 seconds into, I ask her for 6 or 8 line rhyming overviews of the bios. Then I go back and I put them in and I look at how they match up with the real bio, which is usually about 300 words, and I make some changes. Sometimes she misses the mark on some really important things that I think we should highlight. So it's AI plus human, human plus AI plus human. That's it. I'll take credit for 2/3 of that. So I appreciate that very much. Sylvia and I, by the way, Tricia, Sylvia and I converse in French. Her French is more correct. She has more of the diacritical marks, the accent aigus and the accent graves and all that. She writes in more perfect French than I do, but I'll tell her merveilleuse, bisous, bisous, which is kisses, and she'll tell me back, I love your shows and I think you're great and keep the energy going. And we get along really, really well. So I wanted to share that with you. So let's go around the table. The table is set a little short today because there are two of you and I'm absolutely delighted to have you. I met Marc Prensky at a recent National Publicity Summit. Mark, I've been a media guest at the summit for at least 10 years, back to the time when it was live in person at the Hotel Penn, which is no longer existing, I understand, in Manhattan, across the street from Penn Station. And I would be there for 3.5 hours and I would book 50 or more guests on the spot. And they put their books in a box and the summit would mail the box to me and they would all give me their shiny one sheet and I would write an appointment card for them. And we just went through 80 people signed up to meet me and I could book about 50 at a time. So I met Mark virtually. Tricia, in a minute, I'll introduce her. Tricia comes to us through Mickey Mickelson, a good friend in Canada from Creative Edge PR, and he referred Tricia to me. So Tricia, nice to see you. Mark, I must have missed something in your bio. Please. It was a lovely 6 lines, but you have a lifetime of expertise and adventure. So I'm going to put you on speaker view, Mark. Why don't you spend about 3-4 minutes and fill us in some of all the details. Go ahead. Welcome, Marc Prensky.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
So I looked at some of the past shows and I figured out what I was going to say. And I thought I would start with some principles because there are some principles that I have run my whole life on. And the first is I don't like being controlled. I really don't like somebody telling me what to do. I like to decide what I want to do. The second is I've never liked being in the mainstream. I always like being outside. I never like doing something more than twice because you do it once, you learn, you do it twice, you do it okay, you move on. And then I've never liked doing something that I didn't really enjoy and was enthusiastic about. So I haven't done a whole lot just for money or for other reasons. And those three principles, or 3 or 4, have guided my whole life. So I grew up in Queens, New York, at the time of Sputnik. And when Sputnik came out, that was the first big confrontation like we even have today with China. All the kids who were smart got pushed into math and science. And I was pushed with all of them into math and science, and that was fine. But when I got to high school and I was studying math and science, we built a counterculture. I said, we're not going to go through all the fraternities and sororities that all these other kids are going through. We were into folk music. We were into all the people, Joan Baez and Bob Dylan were the people of that time. I went to Oberlin. I was still in math science. By my final year, I said, no, I don't want to live my life in a lab. I'm going out of chemistry. I'm going into French. So I spent a lot of time studying French. Je parle français, and I went for a year in France, and I had a wonderful time until this other thing called Vietnam raised its ugly head, and I couldn't stay there. I had to come back, and that got me into teaching because that was a job that I could do. I didn't love the traditional teaching, and I don't even think I was that good at it, teaching math, but I loved the kids. And I wound up in a street academy that is like a charter school today. It was very early, where I could do all kinds of crazy things with the kids and take them on adventures and do a lot of things. And that was a lot of fun. I was a musician, so when I left the street academy, I said, well, let me go be doing that full time. I had studied classical guitar. I had done enough of that, so I played the lute. I learned a whole new instrument. It was fun. It was Shakespeare. It was the Renaissance. I could dress up and do that. But that didn't make me any money at all. So at one time I read a book or I read an article that said, you know what? These people who go to business school are making $60,000 a year, which today is like $200,000 a year getting out for their first job. I said, oh, why? Well, I could probably do that. I could go into the arts or do something like that. I applied and I got into Harvard, of all places, Harvard Business School. And it was a big surprise. I went there. Guess what? Business never took. But the most creative thing that I did there, I directed the business school show, and it was the best show they'd ever had. So it was a lot of fun. From there, I had to get a job. So I interviewed a lot. Nobody wanted this crazy guy from arts and background. And so the only people who wanted me were the Boston Consulting Group. And I interviewed more times with them than anybody had ever interviewed because they didn't quite get who I was, but they liked the way I thought. And I thought creatively and out of the box. And that was a good thing for me because I learned a new way of thinking. I learned to look at things from a perspective of bottom up. Just start from zero. What would we do if we were going to do this today, given who the world is? And I've applied that to young people. And that's really been the second half of my career because I got in through video games. After that, I didn't know what I was going to do. I got into a training company. Training sucked, excuse the expression. And I said, no, how can we make this interesting? Let's make training into a video game. We did that. I did that for bankers. I did that for traders. I did that for CAD/CAM, and that was a lot of fun. And there I met a lot of young people in my company, and they just did things totally different from me. I would call people, they would put things online, they would do, and I said, these are different people. They do things differently, and I came up with the term digital natives. I wrote an article in an obscure journal. They found it in New Zealand, Australia, Tasmania, and then it got popular. So I got into a big speaking career about digital natives, and I went to 50 countries, and that was a lot of fun. And I started writing books, and I've written 12 books. And so I had a lot of fun doing that. All the books are about young people. And what I came to the conclusion in my whole life is that young people are treated incredibly badly. They're controlled. They're not allowed to do what they're interested in. So the motto of my latest book, Third Millennium Kids, is hell yes, low stress. I want kids who are enthusiastic and who we don't stress out and push. And if we can get that, we'll have a much better world.
Thank you, Marc. I love the bio. I love the way you found yourself through finding what wasn't a fit, what didn't feel right, what wasn't successful. I think I'm on my 9th or 11th career right now, and I understand. We find ourselves by being ourselves. Hey, can I coin that? Can I coin that? Marc is the coining expert. I don't know, you got a couple changes.
Go for it. We find ourselves by being ourselves. I like it too.
Thank you, Tricia. Did you like that? Tricia, please, I'd love to have you fill in the gaps. A little 6-line bio rhyming I gave for you. And there's so much to you, Tricia. And hold up some of your books, for goodness sake. I'm putting the gorgeous Tricia Copeland on full screen now. There we go. You got to explain that. So, Tricia, why don't you give us the bio? I'm putting you on speaker view, and it's your turn. Go ahead and welcome.
So this is To Be a Fae Queen. It's the first book in my Realm Chronicles series. I never thought I would write a series about Fae. It started out as a vampire series that quickly morphed to a witch series, and then the crossover series is Realm Chronicles, which features a Fae, Queen Titania. And yeah, I never thought I'd be here either. I started out in science, interestingly enough, and discovered I liked research, but discovered as I was asking myself, how did I become a scientist and a creative? And those two things seemed mismatched to me. But really, what I loved about research is finding out how to find out the answer that I wanted. So, like how to design the experiments. I would wake up in the middle of the night saying, oh, I could do this. This is how I could do this. And that's what I really loved about research. So, but my research led me to a love of writing, which is so in my day job, I do technical writing, and my night job is fiction writing about witches, fae, and vampires.
I want a list of your books. Can you have any more books you can hold up for us so we can see some more covers?
I
Got
didn't
more
bring
with you?
another one. I have them all back
Okay,
there with my
that's
little
fine.
signs that say, don't let anyone steal your magic and enter if you dare, which are my two mottos.
I
If
want to
you
know more
dare
about
enter
your.
my crazy mind, right?
I want to know more about your characters and about what your genres are. I know you write multiple. Give us a little more. We want more about Tricia. Come on,
Right. So
talk.
I started my writing, fiction writing career writing about my experience with anorexia. So my Being Me series chronicles a young girl from her freshman year in college to her senior year in college, really her, I guess, plummet into her disease as well as her recovery from that. So that was very much a personal thing for me, wanting to write about my experience. And I fictionalized it to protect lots of people and to make it much simpler. But so that was my first foray into fiction writing. And from there, I just got the bug. Like, I love writing. My love is fantasy and vampires and witches. So my next series was the Kingdom Journal series that chronicles a trinity of witches who have to they don't have to break the curse, but they decide to break a curse on the witch lines so that the witches' souls are protected from eternal purgatory. So we have those three witches, and that blossomed into my fairy princess, Queen Titania, coming into the human realm and helping them defend against this evil witch and break the curse. Spoiler alert, a happily ever after. So then the Realm Chronicles series was born, which finds Queen Titania battling the same arch nemesis as the Kingdom Journal series. Therefore, that's why it's a crossover series. So we get to follow all of these characters. I can't let my characters go. I love them so much. So I had to keep them all in my life. But the finale to the Realm Chronicles series comes out in July. So I'm super excited for everyone to just experience the happiness that is found when you are able to finally achieve some goals.
I love that. Tricia, witches and fairies, how do you come up with this? It's obviously not your research career that did this. Do you dream about this? Do you read other books about it? Do you go to movies? Where does this come from?
Yeah, I loved fantasy from a young age. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, the 13-book series. I don't know if you remember that one. And then learning about King Arthur's legends and Merlin and reading all those books, and then jumping into Lord of the Rings. And then I became obsessed with vampires, with Bram Stoker's Dracula. So yeah, I immersed myself in that fiction. And I think it was interesting because Marc said it too. Like, I think all creatives have this in the back of their mind, just questioning, like, what if, or if we see a character, if we see a person, at least I think, what is their backstory? Like, how did they get here? Where are they going? So just that inquisitive mind. And I can create a backstory about anybody. It may not be true, but most of my books are those character-driven stories that I define a character and then I say, oh, where did they come from? How did they get there?
Are you a
did they
pantser
wanna
or a
go?
plotter, Tricia? Are you a pantser or a plotter? How do you do it?
It's really a meld of both. I usually have a vague outline. I know where I want to start, where I want to end, and some major plot points. but if I have a detailed outline, I can't write. Like I will literally
Okay.
sit there and think this is too boring. I can't write what I plan to write. So I like making up scenes that kind of lead to my end goal as I go along.
Okay. Mark, same question for you. Mark, are you a pantser or a plotter?
I don't know what the first word is.
Pantser is where you write by the seat of your pants. You don't plan
Ah,
anything. You just sit down. They're British terms, and I meet a lot of authors who say they're hybrids. They plan something. So a plotter would say, okay, I'm going to have a 12-chapter book, and these are going to be the title. And then you go back and fill in chapter 3 and chapter 5 whenever you want to. So what's your method?
well, it helps me to have an outline, but generally I know more or less what I want to say, and so I'm just struggling with the order to say it. What I found helps a lot is to write articles, and the book becomes a series of the articles that I've written. So each chapter, so it's not as intimidating as looking at a whole book at once. You're just looking at one article, which is one chapter, and if you do them in a reasonable order, they all fit together because they're about the same thing.
I like that. I was teaching adult. You okay, Mark? You need a
Yeah,
drink? Are you okay? Uh,
I will take a drink.
I was teaching adult ed in Great Neck, Long Island years ago, and I decided to teach how to blogging 101. This was when it was starting to be new and people didn't know what to do. And I had mostly adult students. It was adult ed and people from all walks of life. I use that phrase a lot. And I met a woman who came into the class and she was writing about becoming about to become a senior, not in high school, a senior in life. And she had reactions to aging and reactions to cultural changes and physical changes. And she wrote and wrote and wrote, and she started a blog. Well, a couple years later, she contacted me. We're still in touch years later. And she wrote a book called Raging Against Aging. She turned it, Mark, she took the blog posts, which is exactly what you said, and she
Hmm.
put them together in a book. She's also a very talented artist and she paints beautiful, she'll do still lifes and that kind of thing. And she posts them on Facebook, but she turned it into a book. So she took the blogs and made the blogs into her chapters. Tricia, do you ever do that? Do you write bits and pieces and then put them together? Or are you mostly, this is the book, as you say, this is the goal of the character, and I'm just going to keep writing? How do you put that together?
Well, several of my books have started with short stories.
Okay.
So I've been asked to write in anthologies, and I would write a short story from the anthology and then think, well, this is a short story. I have this character. I need I need more to learn more about this character. So two of my series have grown from short stories.
Interesting. I joined a short story writing challenge by a woman. I won't name her here, but she's based in South Africa, so the time zones are woo, nobody can figure it out. But anyway, I wrote a short story and it was a prompt and it was exactly 1,200 words. You had to write by a prompt. That word had to be in the title or somehow in the theme of your story. And it was fine. And I was very excited. And I wrote something about family and it was fictional, but it was based on personal experiences. Of course, that's what we write about. And I submitted it. And to my chagrin or horror or amazement, she had almost 600 submissions. You were supposed to find, and they're categorized with you have a title and your name, whatever it's a pseudonym, it's a nom de plume or your real name, and there you write whether there's a trigger. Does it have anything, addiction or horror or death or abuse or dystopian worlds or something? You write if there's a trigger and you write a little tiny synopsis when you submit it. So here I was, my story is floating with almost 600 other stories, and she gives you exactly 24 hours to submit your story. Exactly. And you have to figure out which time zone you're in based on her. She's wonderful. She motivates that many people. So you're supposed to read at least four, and leave comments for them. But if you say thank you to somebody, that counts as a comment on your story. So if Tricia commented on mine and I said, thank you, Tricia, that means I had two comments, yours and mine. So it looks like I would have two and I only really had one. Anyway, the point was that I realized it was like blowing into the wind. Stories go there to die. And I realized, why was I doing that? So I'm now writing for myself again, short stories, and I just penned off something at 1,600 words, a family story, and I'm really happy with it, but I have no idea what to do with it or where to put it. So, Tricia, any thoughts, or Mark, on how do you I'm not looking for a complete lesson plan from you, but anything about what do you do with your stories that are, I call it micro nonfiction. What do you think?
Well, one of the places that I put my stories, if I don't have another place to put them, is Medium, and also
Okay.
LinkedIn. Medium is very good. It has a lot of stories, and they're because they're around, people find them eventually, and they give you over time a report on how many people have looked up your thing. And
Okay.
some of the articles that I wrote a while ago have gotten, a lot of them don't, but
Hmm.
some of them have gotten reasonable traction.
Thank
Sending it
you.
out, I just sent an article to The Atlantic, and that was also sending it into nowhere.
It's like going into the wind, and there's a word I won't use. Tricia, what about you? What do you do with your articles that become books? What do you do with them?
I usually share them with my newsletter subscribers, my email list. But I would think for someone like you, like making a video and reading your story would be really impactful to get it because people that listen to you and follow you probably like what you do. So they're going to like your short stories. So putting them out there
Thank
in that kind of
you.
medium could be good for you too.
That's lovely. And you said so many nice things about me in there. So thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go to the part of the show where I've asked each of you to please send me a fictional quote from a character in a movie or a TV show or a song lyric, and you're going to relate it to your own creativity. Mark has picked a quote from Dorothy Gale, played by the inimitable Judy Garland, the original Wizard of Oz 1939 musical fantasy film. And we all know that last night was the Oscars, and The Wicked, which is based on The Wiz, was up for 10 awards and won two. And they opened with songs from Defying Gravity and et cetera, et cetera. And it didn't reach the heights that we thought it would in terms of awards, but I understand it's still a beautiful movie. So Mark has picked an iconic quote from The Wizard of Oz. I'll read it. And Mark, I'd like you to take a couple minutes and tell us how this applies to your creativity. And the quote, of course, is Toto, I've a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Mark, go for it. What does this have to do with Marc Prensky and digital natives? Maybe or maybe not. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I wondered what quote I had picked. I couldn't remember.
Love
So,
it.
the world is changing. It's a different world, and especially for young people, it's a very different world. And that's one of the big things that I talk about in my book. One of the biggest themes is that you can't raise kids for the world in which you grew up, because they will succeed in the world that doesn't exist anymore. And you've got to think about what is going to be important and needed and useful in the world that's coming. It's a world of AI. It's a world of technology. It's a world of a supercomputer in your pocket. It's a world of being connected, if you want to every person in the world in some way. And so none of our school prepares kids for that. So what I talk about is enthusiasm and low stress and high imagination and self-knowledge and getting out there and doing things and actually doing projects that have an impact. And none of that happens in school, not a single thing. So we are just not in Kansas anymore for the kids. Most of the adults, they're still in Kansas.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting point of view and observation. And you're right. And schools can be creativity killers, right, Mark?
They sure can.
And I'll never forget, my daughter brought home a report. She hates when I tell this story, and I'll never use her name on the air. Tricia, you're going to love this. She brought home a report from her first grade teacher. We were in Eugene, Oregon at the time. We lived there for a few years, and public school was just around the corner from where we lived. And the teacher said, your daughter is coloring outside the lines, and she needs remedial drawing lessons. I kid you not. My daughter went on. We've had debates about how she really felt about that teacher. She went on to become an incredible artist who was number one in her medical school class. She illustrated all of her biology notebooks in high school with detailed drawings that could have been framed. I have art she did at the age of 13 and 15 that is framed on the walls of my house wherever I live. I bring them with me. Very talented, Phi Beta Kappa junior year, and she still does beautiful art. And she was told that she wasn't, Mark, she wasn't drawing within the lines. Now, is there anything more narrow? Tricia's looking shocked. Mark's looking, yeah, yeah, I get it. I know, Red. I know, absolutely. So I will never forget that shock and amazement that said that. So anyway, thank you for the quote. I appreciate that. There were so many interesting quotes from that show, and this seems to be the one that resonates with everybody. By the way, I have my Alexa set to the Wicked theme, and so if I ask Alexa in the morning, I get up and I say, "What's the weather, Alexa?" Of course, I know what the weather. What's the weather, Alexa? And she'll greet me by name. I won't give you the full name the way she does it, and then she'll say, "Just trying to help you defy gravity, right, Alphaba?" And then you hear, "Right." And that's how I get greeted every morning. Talk about an AI greeting. There we go. Tricia, I'm looking at your quote. This is an interesting one. Goes along with your preference in writing genres. This is from Bonnie Bennett, played by Kat Graham, in the teen TV show, supernatural teen drama TV show on the CW from 2009 to 2017. A little more current than Mark's 1939 movie. 171 episodes and 8 seasons, and the show was called The Vampire Diaries. And the character said, "You know, I can start fires with my mind. Fires kill vampires, right?" Okay, Tricia, dear, tell us what this has to do with your creativity. Go ahead.
Well, it's partly I speak on Bonnie's character. She's a witch and she's a new witch, and she really has to come into her own powers. And the vampire she's speaking to, Damon, is kind of cocky and thinking he's all great and powerful, and she's kind of like, wait, you know what? I could take you. So it's a little bit about taking your own power and believing in yourself and realizing your worth and your contribution, I guess, to society, whether that's creating magic or whether that's writing a book or whether that's solving a math problem, whatever your gift is.
What fascinates you about the vampires? May I ask that?
I don't know. I've just always been fascinated. I mean, they don't die, so that's wonderful. You don't get
Okay.
sick. You can see better, run faster than other normal humans. So all of that is something I would want.
What about garlic and mirrors? Is that something that figures into your stories?
No, my vampire is a little different. They don't have a problem with mirrors. They do die. They do die
Okay.
after about 800 or 900 years, but they don't
Oh
get
dear.
sick or anything. And they can be killed. They don't have to have a wooden stake to kill them, but they do have super healing powers as well as super sight, super senses, super speed. So yeah, my vampire is a little bit different. I mean, just a different take on the normal.
Thank
I'll
you very
describe a
much.
vampire.
Thank you.
Do they have a
Okay.
preference for blood type?
I
Oh,
haven't asked them that. I haven't dug that deep. I should dig that deep. My vampires also can eat natural foods as well as consuming blood because they have to fit into society some way, right? So yeah, you
are
could be
they dis
walking beside a vampire today and not even know it.
are they discovered? Do they out themselves? You say they're walking in society. You say you could be walking alongside a vampire and not know it. How would you know it unless they say, "Hi, I'm a vampire"? No, you're kidding. It's not Halloween. How does that happen? Mark, are we going to tell her? Anyway, go ahead, Tricia.
Oh, the teeth would give it away. You get them to smile.
Tricia, do they reveal themselves in a certain way in your stories?
They don't know. My
Okay.
books quickly, I mean, it's an urban fantasy, so it is set in the human world, and my characters in the beginning are in human high school pretending to be normal human. And then they get swept away by this quest to break the curse on the witches. So they kind of skip the rest of high school and go on this year-long quest to break the curse. And at the end, they kind of make a nod to the fact that they have to go back to their real lives. So we don't get to see that. And maybe that's the next chapter that I'll write in their lives. But
Interesting. How many hours a day do you write, or where do you write, Tricia? Do you write indoors, outdoors, coffee shop? Do you have an office? Do you write on a porch or day, night? Just give us a little clue for the fantasy aspect.
yeah, it varies. This is my office. I have a window in front of me. I do like being outside, but it's hard to see a screen when you're outside, and wintertime kind of messes that up as well. So, and it varies when I write, whether in the morning. I tend to be more creative in the evening. Like my technical brain works in the morning, my creative brain works at night. And yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll hang up character sheets and pictures that I kind of for inspiration, and I have like a whole world building, and I have like my plot structures. I map all those out visually, so I'm visualizing as I'm going through and making sure everything's aligning.
How many hours a day do you write
If
altogether?
I'm doing a project, I like to at least write every day, on even if it's for just 15 minutes, if that's all I can carve out. But if I write every day, then the story usually moves better, and I'm not forgetting what I just wrote, and I can move along the story faster. But yeah, so in a perfect world, I would write an hour or two every day on a project if I'm working on it, but that doesn't
Thank
always
you.
work. So.
Thank you. Mark, how often and how much do you write? How many hours a day or how often a week?
My things just come out in chunks. So if I write a book, I sit down for a couple of weeks, and out comes the book. And the way I look at it is, if it's in there, it has to come out. You know, they say, one of my favorite memories is they say that Handel wrote the Messiah in 2 weeks, which means that he had it in his head for 2 years or something like that, and he just took 2 weeks and wrote it down. And that's more or less the way I am. I have it, I more or less know what I'm going to say, and then it's just spitting it out. And often I do it in writing by voice, because voice to text is very effective, and it means that I don't have to worry about the typing. So
What app may I ask what app you use?
generally just the recorder on the Mac.
Okay.
You just, in Word will do it. Almost anything will do
Yep.
it. Notes in the
Interesting.
Mac. It's so
Okay.
good now that it
Is
really
it
hardly misses a beat.
very, very interesting? I wrote 3 romantic comedy plays a few years ago. Excuse me. And I wanted to write a play, Tricia and Mark. And so I Googled, how do you write a play? What format? What font do you use? How do you space it? How do you describe the scene, the characters, the premise? And I found Playwriting 101, and it was a document. It wasn't a PDF. It was just somebody had posted it somewhere. So I brought it in, and it was in a Word document. I downloaded it, and I started filling in. And I worked from 1 in the morning till about 4 I had a full-time job, and I wrote from about 1 in the morning till 4 for 4 nights. The characters told me what to say. The play was done. The first one, it was done. That was it. I was just, I was a channel. I was a conduit. And as soon as I figured it out, where the characters were, as soon as I started describing them and describing the scene, it just poured. Mark, it just came. It needed to be said. And then I did 2 more plays. And the fun was that I was doing my own TV show called Something to Talk About. Mark, I grew up in Queens also, but I was in Great Neck Lake Success on a TV channel there. And I knew people who were community actors, and I appealed to them to come and act in my show. And I got so many people that I did 2 versions of the same play. But I became a casting director. I became the coach. I became the director. We went to the TV studio. We did the whole thing on green screen. My friend, who was my director of my regular show, went to Manhattan and filmed. It was taking place in the front of Penn Station. So he filmed from his car. He stood up and opened the moonroof, and he filmed traffic in Manhattan. He filmed people milling around the front of Penn Station on 7th Avenue. And we used that. And then we got a picture of a van with the door open, and then with the door closed. We downloaded that, and we used that against the green screen. So they were sitting on chairs in an empty studio with a green curtain. And I bought a toy steering wheel. a plastic one, and we put it on. We mounted it, and it was a taxi driver, and he was using the steering wheel, and they were sitting behind him, and the whole play took place in the van, and we had the noises of Manhattan, and we had the background of Manhattan, and it looked they were actually sitting in a cab.
Wow.
It's amazing what you can do.
Unbelievable. My person, George, my director at the time, was so creative, and he said he loved green screen, so he said let's try it, and we did, and I used that for the other two plays. But my point was that the characters told me what they wanted to say. It was not a debate. I didn't argue with them. They just came through. So I want to do, we have 15 minutes left, which is plenty of time. I want to pick one creativity statement from each of you. Marc, you've given us almost everything in your creativity statements, and I'm looking for something that's different here. And here we go. I'm going to pick your number 2 statement. I'll read it to you. You say, I was a professional musician, lutist, and classical guitar. And I asked you in my questions before the show, why the lute? And you said, I chose it because I related to the music in the times of the Renaissance. I imagined the Renaissance music in my own way. Lute is just, let's be honest, Marc, that is just an unusual choice for an instrument, no matter whether you want to be a Renaissance guy or not. So, Marc, what was special about the lute? How did you find one? Did you buy it? Did you make it? Give us a little more. I want to know more.
Well, when I was in France, I had a guy who was my guitar teacher who made me my very first lute.
Hmm.
And then I met the guitar teacher in New York who became a guitar maker, and he made me a lute. And I just loved the shape, the feel, the whole idea, all the strings that they were. But it was a very interesting thing because in my time learning the lute, they discovered that the lute was played totally differently from the guitar, that they wondered why the all the guitarists hold your hand like this and you hit the strings, and in all the pictures nobody did that. None of the lute players, they all held their hands like this, and they could have said, well, the painters must have been wrong. And it turns out that there's a style of playing like this that somebody discovered, and so I had to change my whole style. But it was the other thing about the lute was that it was a niche that there were fewer people in. So one of the things that I've always found is that if you can find your own way, your own niche that you can be expressive in, that there aren't a whole lot of people doing it, it's sometimes an easier route to go.
Okay, very, very interesting. Thank you very much. I want to go to a statement from Tricia. Let me go back to gallery view. Here we are. Tricia, you wrote, my creativity is always often sparked from being in natural habitats. Successive hikes in the Colorado mountains shaped my dystopian fiction about two on-the-run teens traversing the country with only their feet to propel them. Interesting. Tell us, paint a picture for us, Tricia. I like this one. Go ahead.
Right. So I was challenged to write a story about healing in an anthology, and being a microbiologist, it ended up being a story about a flu pandemic. And granted, this was in 2018 when reading about flu pandemics wasn't as horrible as it is now. But anyway, so yeah, these characters, their parents ship them to a desert cave community to get away from this pandemic. Basically, their parents are in the military and they have the ability, and this military group has formed this research group in a cave in Nevada. And so the two teens get shipped there in the first book, and then they discover there's sort of like this covert military government that is going to take over the regular government and try and steal the cure to the flu pandemic for themselves. So this group of these two teens decide that no, this isn't the right thing to do. We should help all the people in the world. So they go on a trek to try and stop this government, but they have to go from California all the way to Iowa with only their feet. So they don't have any vehicles, they don't have any planes. But just, camping through the Colorado wilderness, it makes you think, what if you really had to do, back in the pioneer days, they had wagons. I mean, way before that, they didn't have anything, right? So that just takes you back to just self-reliance.
Very, very interesting. So your And now these were vampires, kids, or these were humans?
These were human kids, yes. A futuristic dystopian society where, well, I guess it doesn't start out as a dystopian society. It really only becomes more dystopian once um, the secondary government takes over and decides it's not called the United States anymore. It's called something else. But the United States is going to keep this cure from the rest of the world. So that's when it kind of goes off the rails and becomes dystopian-like.
How do you name your characters, Tricia?
I usually look up like names that mean something.
Okay.
So not as much in this one. In this one, the main characters are Gemma, Jema, which was just sort of felt like a futuristic, not normal name to me. And Troy, whose family is much more conservative. And so that was, yeah, things come out about him that I won't give away right now.
Oh, no, please don't. No spoilers. I can't be responsible.
But definitely in my fantasy books, like in the Kingdom Journals, I have a character named Thanatos, which literally translates as death. And his son is Theron, which is very close to death or evil. So I do that a lot. And I think most of my readers pick up on those things, but yeah.
Very cool. So the subtext is there. Interesting, because you don't know who your readers are and you don't know what their point of reference is, what their context is, what their experiences are. And you're basically casting your characters and your scenes into the wind and saying, reader, do something with this, process it, enjoy it, benefit from it, react to it, love it or hate it, but let it be part of your experience. Am I right?
Definitely. I hope so. I would hope
you're
have that feeling.
inviting them into your world. I hadn't thought of it that way. Okay. I have a quote for both of you from Kurt Vonnegut, who lived from 1922 to 2007. I know that Mark probably knows who he is, an American humorist and the author of satirical and darkly humorous novels. Tricia, he only wrote 14 novels, 3 short story collections, 5 plays, 5 nonfiction books over 50 years. And further collections have been published since his death. He's very famous. And here is an interesting quote I picked up quite a while ago that's in my notes. Go into the arts. I'm not kidding. The arts are not a way to make a living, right, Mark? They are a very human way of making life more bearable. Practicing an art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow, for heaven's sake. Sing in the shower, dance to the radio, tell stories, write a poem to a friend, even a lousy poem. Do it as well as you possibly can. You will get an enormous reward. You will have created something. Isn't that lovely? Excuse me.
It is lovely. I still remember poems that I wrote when I was in high school and even before. And what you do when it comes out tends to stick with you. I remember all the details of the business school show I directed. I remember all the details of many things, much more than I remember other stuff. So I think that comes from a special place inside you.
Tricia, did that quote resonate with you?
I was going to say, I can remember all my characters' names. I can't usually remember my neighbor's name.
Oh, trust me. Tell me about it. I have some interesting facts. We've got a few minutes left. March 3 events in music history. I do an on this date segment at the end of the show. I don't know why I'm coughing. Give me a second here. Cab Calloway. Mark, you might know this name. Cab Calloway. Hold on.
I met his daughter. Yes.
He recorded Minnie the Moocher on the Brunswick record label in New York City in 1931 on this day. It would become the first jazz recording to sell 1 million copies. Tricia might know a little bit about this. In 1967, I'm not looking at anybody's birthday here, the Jeff Beck Group, with an unknown vocalist named Rod Stewart, made their live performance debut in London at the Finsbury Park Astoria. I thought so. That was the introduction of Rod Stewart to concerts. In 1973, on this date, Elton John's album Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player hit #1 in the U.S. for 2 weeks. That was 1973. Do the math backwards. 5 years later, on 1978, on this day, Van Halen began their first world tour, opening for Journey. How's that for some music history? At the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. They released their debut album 3 weeks later. They had been playing in clubs for 4 years, but it took them that long to go on their world tour. That's probably a pretty short time. In 1980, on this date, The auction house Sotheby's, you've all heard of that, hold their first auction of rock memorabilia. $4 bills signed by the Beatles are sold for $528. Okay. I don't know which Beatle signed it. On this date in 1995, this is a strange note here. A stalker was arrested trying to break into Roberta Flack's New York apartment. Now, 2 weeks ago was Roberta Flack's birthday. And I announced her as part of my birthday lore, my birthday list of celebrities, and she passed 2 weeks later. And that made me twice as sad because I remembered reading about her starts, and she was a very interesting creative person. So famous birthdays today. If anybody remembers Boston Legal or A Modern Family, there's a lovely actress named Julie Bowen. She played Claire Dunphy on Modern Family and Denise Bauer on Boston Legal, both memorable. She's 55 today. And if anybody knows the song Havana, Havana, da 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 da, I'm killing it here. 2017 hit song Havana, certified 7 times platinum. The singer Camila Cabello is 28 today, and I love that song. Today is the day that Alexander Graham Bell was born. He was a scientist, an innovator, an inventor known for patenting the first practical telephone. He also worked on optical communications, Mark, hydrofoils, and aeronautics, and he was the second president of the National Geographic Society. He refused to have his phone in his study because he said it was a sidetrack. His real work was helping the deaf. He thought a phone was just an annoyance. He created a dehusking machine to help a best friend. Now, I have 3 birthdays for you. You've never heard of these people, I promise. And we're going to wish them a happy birthday. Okay, Tricia, here's the first one. On YouTube, a young man named Matt Salvatore is 32 today. Why am I telling you that? Because he has 13 million YouTube subscribers and 8 million TikTok subscribers. Who in the world is Matt Salvatore? He's an Italian-American musician. He's a member of the duo Lionfield with his friend Emiliano Santoro. He is a music and humor-focused content creator. He started learning music and playing drums at 14. He graduated from the Berklee College of Music in 2019, and he entertained with his partner in the pandemic, and he's educating people about the Italian culture and love of music. So only 13 million plus YouTube subscribers and 8 million on TikTok. Mark, should we wish him a happy birthday? What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Berkeley School, fabulous.
There you go. So he's the real deal. And I still don't know how he got 13 million. On TikTok, we have a young lady named Lily Rowland, ROWLA, and News 21 today. She's just starting out. You got to feel sorry for her. She only has 2.8 million subscribers. She does beauty influencing, Tricia, and she's a content creator. She does makeup tutorials and makeup routines and getting ready with her videos. And one of her most popular TikToks was a dance filmed in her apartment that got 4 million views. I have to start filming myself, Mark. I don't know what I'm going to do. And on TikTok, we have a young man named Jay Daddy, Jaydadddy, one word, very economical. 27 today. He has 4.7 million followers. He does comedy skits, long form, dark humor, and he ran over his laptop with a car and got 1 million views on that. I kid you not. And I have other things he did that I didn't even want to talk about. I didn't like them. Today is British Pie Week. It was founded in 2007 by a British pastry rolling company and taken over by the website Pierate, Pierate, in 2016. They bake hundreds of pies and give the ingredients. And okay, we'll start with that. Today is Canadian Bacon Day, Irish Whiskey Day. Cold Cut Day, I just had some turkey. Moscow Mule Day, Mulled Wine Day, Talk in the Third Person Day. Okay, I didn't do that today. I want you to be Happy Day. I dedicate that to Mark and to Tricia. Ear Care Day and Procrastination Week. I think they go together. March is the month of noodles, National Noodle Month, peanuts, celery. I think they might go together. Exotic winter fruits and leeks and green onions, frozen foods, berries, cherries, and caffeine awareness. Thank you, Jordan. I have 2 minutes left. And this is the month of, obviously, Academy Awards, March Madness. We know about that. Here we go. It's Adopt a Rescued Guinea Pig Month. Aww. Mark, and Tricia, I think and Dolphin Awareness Month. So if you find a dolphin and a rescued guinea pig, let me know. It's Expanding Girls' Horizons in Science and Engineering Month. It's Gardening, Nature, and Ecology Books Month. Humorists Are Artists Month. I like that because I paint and I used to do comedy. Now I'm just trying to be funny sitting down. It's International Mirth Month. Mad for Plaid Month, National Craft Month, Crochet Month, National Umbrella Month, and Read an Ebook Month. That's all I have. So let me do my closing here, and don't go away. We'll talk afterwards. So I want to say thank you to Jordan, our engineer. He's got us on the Voice America Empowerment YouTube channel, and I've got us on LinkedIn, Facebook twice, and YouTube. And Marc Prensky and Tricia Copeland, you've been lovely. And a shout out to Mickey Mickelson as well. So join me in my closing here real fast. Life is short. Break the rules. Forgive quickly. Nah. Kiss slowly. Oh, yeah. Love truly. Laugh uncontrollably. Laugh with me, the two of you. 1, 2, 3. Tricia was ready and never, ever regret anything that made you smile. Here we go. Work like you don't need the money. Dance like no one's watching. They watched when I taught dancing. Sing like nobody's listening. Love like you've never been hurt. We all have. Get over it. Get back into life. Money talks. Chocolate sings. La. And last but not least, I stole this line from another host about 20 years ago. Thank you for turning me on. Radio Red signing off. Jordan, are we ready for me to play the outro music? Jordan? I'm going to play it anyway. Here we go.
On Read My Lips Radio,
Okay.
producer
Can
and
you hear
host,
it?
aka Radio Red, invites you to eavesdrop
can
on her
dance.
live, unscripted conversations with smart, savvy,
He wrote
creative
yes.
people as she discovers what makes them tick,
What makes
where
you
they
tick?
find their inspiration,
Oh, go
when
dance, Mark. That's
creativity
it.
first
Mark's
became their
dancing.
passion,
Come on, Tricia.
and how their
See those
creative
moves.
process can inspire
those
the rest of
Colorado
us
moves.
to think out of the box. Enjoy, aka Radio Red's always lively, cool conversations